honestly don't care. I just want Democrats to stop acting like they are on this moral high ground politically when they have shown us they're not.
These charges were garbage. They were trash. That gun charge would imprison half the country.
So what happened between 2014 and 2016? What could Hunter Biden have possibly gotten himself into that it appears Joe Biden is trying to protect him from getting prosecuted for?
I actually talked to Joe Biden about this. When he was on the show, I told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter.
I remember.
I take issue with lying about it. I wanted to ask him here when he came on The View, but the thought was he said so many times he wasn't going to pardon him. That to me is lying to the public.
I'd stop calling it a lie. This is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with. Because when we're talking about who gets a pardon and who doesn't get a pardon, this man, I think Biden had no intentions of pardoning Hunter.
Except he did, in fact, pardon his son, Hunter Biden, after saying that he wouldn't repeatedly. Now, he announced this over the weekend with a statement. I'm going to read the relevant excerpts from it. Biden says, from the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. So what he's referencing there is Hunter Biden's charge in lying in a government document in order to obtain or buy a firearm. What he lied about was his drug use. He bought the gun at a time when he was addicted to drugs. Biden continues saying, those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. Finally, he says, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. And he ends his statement, Cenk, by saying, look, I hope the American people understand where I'm coming from and why I'm doing this. So, he wants them to see this as like the unfair prosecution of his son. He sees it as lawfare. And that's how he's trying to kind of soften the blow, considering for many, many months, for a few years, this is what we were hearing from the Biden administration. Watch.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no. And I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
Now, look, Karine Jean-Pierre's White House press secretary, she's regurgitating what she's told to say. And Biden said on record multiple times that he does not intend to pardon his son. I think that the hypocrisy angle here is actually the least interesting angle to the story. Yeah, politicians lie. Yeah, but even Democratic presidents lie. I'm not surprised by that at all. And in fact, Cenk, when it comes to these two particular charges, right, the gun charge and the failure to pay his taxes, well, Biden is right. His son did end up paying his taxes back with the penalties, with interest included. And he did lie on that government form, but the fact that he's facing 25 years in prison over that is ridiculous. So I personally do not mind the pardon over those offenses. However, I do have a problem with the window of time in which Biden has given his son a blanket pardon. And I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but I want to get your thoughts first.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's acknowledge how powerful we are. I brought on a free Hunter t-shirt from shoptyt.com onto Hassan's Thanksgiving special. And boom, he's free. Look, I'm not saying we did it, but I'm just saying, okay? No, seriously, the reason why we have that t-shirt is kind of playful for the reasons that I'm going to explain now. So first on The View, Whoopi's excuses for Biden were hilarious. Well, you can't call that a lie.
It's a lie.
He wasn't going to pardon his son, and then he did. Wait, why can't you call that a lie? It's a bald-faced lie. It's as lie gets, right? And the reason she's saying that you can't call that a lie is because Joe Biden's her friend, so she just wants to have a completely different standard. And then she said, well, I didn't think he had intent to lie. When you say you're not going to do something, thinking, it doesn't matter, we'll probably win the election anyway. Oh my God, we lost the election. I didn't see that coming. Well, I was lying the entire time. That's intent. That's intent. But for mainstream media, corporate Democrats are the beloved. They could do no wrong. So it doesn't matter if they do the same exact thing as Donald Trump, which we'll get back to in a second. Donald Trump bad, Joe Biden's an angel. No, neither one of them is an angel. So now on Hunter Biden, as we've said hundreds of times on this show, low-level con man. Everybody knows that. He's not a Ukrainian gas expert. He's not a modern artist. That's all scams using his name to get paid, okay? So second thing is the laptop showed that he's not connected to Joe Biden. Every piece of evidence shows, and my God, did Comer and the Republicans try. They got his bank accounts. They got every piece of evidence that they needed. And still nothing connecting him to Joe Biden. In fact, in the laptop, he says, don't ever say that we can represent the big guy because we can't. And he won't do what we say. And it turns out, as far as we can tell, Joe Biden never did anything to help Hunter Biden. Now, when the Republicans say, well, he must have. But brother, you got to have evidence. We'll come back to that in the scope of how big the pardon is. So would I have pardoned these things? Well, look, as another thing we pointed out on the show 100 times, and Anna just made it 101, I'll make it 102. These charges were garbage. They were trash. That gun charge would imprison half the country.
Yeah, for real.
Right wing, you do not want that gun charge to be a precedent, okay? Because if you ever smoke pot and then you write in the form that, whatever, that you haven't done drugs, that's it, you're as guilty as Hunter Biden, give him 25 years. I mean, that's how they can clean up all the guns in the country. They just arrest like 3/4 of right-wingers for lying on that form. It's almost impossible not to lie on that form. So now the income tax thing, also total trash. Look, I love that the IRS hired more auditors and want to audit the rich. They're getting away with cheating on their taxes ad nauseum to the tune of billions of dollars. But this guy didn't file his taxes because he was high. Then before he was charged, he was like, oh, okay, I'll make amends. He filed his taxes, paid the taxes, and paid the penalty. We're done with it. What are we're going to go after him and not go after the billionaires that are not paying their taxes? No, those are all political. And you don't solve Biden administration going after Trump politically by the Trump administration going after Hunter Biden politically. And that's what Biden was worried about. And that's why he that's why he pardoned him. If you say, wait a minute, it's Joe Biden administration that went after Hunter. Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, yes. Why did they do that? And was it for optics, or was there something bad in there that they wanted to avoid? So Anna, back to you.
So I just want to reiterate, even though Biden did lie, I actually do not have an issue with the pardon as it pertains specifically to his two current charges, right? The tax charge and the gun charge. Putting that aside, though, when you notice the period of time in which Biden has provided the blanket pardon for his son, the dates are super fishy. I noticed that it's like this lengthy 11-year period. So like what justifies that? And more importantly, when did he commit the crimes that he's being prosecuted for? So I looked into this, and luckily Lee Fong did some excellent reporting on this issue. He writes that the order grants Hunter a pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. So that's 10 years, a 10-year span. So he writes that the pardon window extends beyond the period of the crimes prosecuted by the Department of Justice. Okay, because after all, the illegal firearm purchase was on October 12th of 2018. Hunter failed to pay his 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 taxes on time. So what justifies going all the way back to January 1st of 2014? Well, 2014 is when he was tapped to serve on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma. And while Joe Biden has not been found guilty, there's no evidence to indicate that Joe Biden engaged in any influence peddling. Recent reporting from the New York Times indicates that Hunter Biden was certainly trying to engage in influence peddling. Now, there hasn't been any prosecution on those grounds. And I think that the congressional Republicans were so intent on catching Joe Biden in some sort of criminality that they kind of didn't pursue prosecution of Biden on these alleged corruption charges or corruption allegations. But nonetheless, I think that window is far too long. And to me, it signals that there's a possibility that Hunter Biden did something illegal. And Joe Biden is offering this blanket pardon for a lengthier period of time in order to protect his son. I could be wrong about that. But what do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, so look, there's two different things here, as Anna's pointing out. One is, what did Hunter Biden do wrong? And the other is he connected to Joe Biden? And so far, in every piece of evidence we've seen, including the infamous laptop, it appears that Joe Biden is not connected to Hunter Biden. Like, so he goes and works with some Romanian criminal, Hunter does, some Chinese company that wanted something and they couldn't get it and then went bankrupt, et cetera. Not just the Ukrainian gas guys, but there's all sorts of different scams he's involved in, right? So the thing is, though, you see in every instance, they do not get what they wanted from the US government. So that is enormously exculpatory of Joe Biden. That means Joe Biden likely didn't do anything wrong, and there's never been a shred of evidence that he did. On the other hand, did Hunter do something worse than the gun and tax charges? That's entirely possible, right? To me, I never, to this day, I don't know if Biden's Justice Department brought up the gun and income tax charges just to charge him with something, just to say, hey, look, we're being fair and honest. We're charging the president's son, so get off our backs. But that was a way of avoiding the corruption issue, which is much larger and worse, right? Or they really didn't have anything on the corruption issue, but the Republicans were breathing down their necks so badly that they're like, all right, let's just charge him on the gun charge because technically it's illegal, and the income tax thing because technically it's illegal, and that way we can get a win and get the Republicans off our back because they're investigating us every single day. And I don't know how many times to tell me there is no corruption that connects to Joe Biden. So it could be either one of those things.
Yeah, in fact, I remember when there was a plea deal for Hunter Biden that the Republican Party succeeded in torpedoing, because the issue they had with the plea deal is that it would prevent the Republicans from investigating possible influence peddling or corruption that Hunter Biden may have engaged in. And they thought that was unfair. You know, a plea deal pertaining specifically to the charges he's currently dealing with, they seem to be open to, but they didn't like the added contingency that Republicans or prosecutors would not be able to go after Hunter Biden over potential corruption. And the New York Times reporting that I'm referring to, I'll give you a few examples. So in 2015, Hunter Biden was hired by this Gabriel Popoviciu, who is a Romanian businessman. He was facing prosecution for corruption in Romania. And in 2015, he hired Hunter Biden, who is a lawyer, while his father was vice president, to help fend off charges. That effort was unsuccessful, to your point, Cenk. And in 2016, this Russian businessman was convicted on charges related to a land deal in northern Bucharest. So there are other specific examples that have been provided by the New York Times in their reporting, having to do with China, as you referenced, Cenk. I don't know what the truth is, right? This is not really something that has been investigated by prosecutors. But again, I do think that the length of time in which Hunter Biden has now been given cover is too long, and I think could potentially be done on purpose to protect Hunter Biden, if he engaged in any illegal corruption, which does happen time to time, believe it or not. Some corruption is still considered illegal in America.
Yeah, I know, because especially the Corrupt Foreign Service Act prevents you from bribing foreign officials, as an example, or them bribing you, because one of Trump's top donors, Sheldon Adelson, had that charge against him, which magically went away with a tiny little fine in that context. when Trump got into office. So, but I'm sure the Republicans are livid about that. Are they? No. Oh yeah, I'm getting news from my non-existent earpiece that they are not livid about that, and I'll come back to that in a second. But so prosecutors, I don't know if they did the right thing or not in unearthing everything they could about Hunter Biden, but I do know that James Comer had all the time in the world to investigate him, and here's how many connections that he found between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden: zero.
Exactly.
Nothing. Okay. So if you're pretending that he found something, well, where is it, brother? Where is it? So he's full of crap. He never found anything. One of our members here, Box on Super Chat, made a good point. So on the gun charge, he said, so I'm pretty pro Second Amendment. I don't like that he pardoned Hunter without fixing the question of the gun form too. That question needs to be changed.
I agree.
This has nothing to do with any substance. If you thought that was bad, you should change that line in the gun form. And I agree. I'm not a gun rights advocate. I'm probably the opposite. But that line makes no sense and it should be taken out. But nobody fixes anything that affects the average American. They only do things that affect the very, very elite. Now, finally, to that point, I'm allowed to be outraged by Hunter Biden's scams. I'm allowed to know, hey, wait a minute, did it connect to Joe Biden or not, et cetera. But that's because I'm consistent and principled, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. But if you're a Republican or a right winger who's saying Hunter Biden is the worst thing in the world, blah, 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 but then you don't mind that Donald Trump pardoned Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, and Charles Kushner, let alone dozens of other incredibly wealthy people and people connected to Donald Trump that I could tell you about, well, then you're a giant hypocrite. So you got to own up to that. So, for example, Steve Bannon's crimes had nothing to do with the Trump administration. He was building a fake wall. He just robbed his own viewers, and his co-conspirators went to jail. And Trump's like, yeah, but he's my guy, and I like that he was robbing people. I pardon him. But if you say, okay, well, but Bannon and Stone, maybe they're crooks, but they're his crooks. Charles Kushner is obviously his son-in-law's dad, Jared Kushner's dad. That crime that Charles Kushner committed was both awful, was a white-collar crime looking to rip other people off, and happened before the Trump administration. It had nothing to do with lawfare, and the guy who convicted him was Chris Christie. So why did you pardon Charles Kushner? Because he's part of the Trump family. So I could be mad and you could be mad about Hunter Biden, but Trump and his allies don't get this fake cry about, oh, I can't believe Biden pardoned family members. All right, why'd you pardon Charles Kushner, that giant criminal? Oh, right, because he's now part of your criminal family.
Yeah, and in fact, Donald Trump has named him the ambassador of France, which is quite. Yeah, wait, Jared Kushner is going to be the ambassador of France?
That's what I thought.
Oh, I thought it was going to be his dad. Maybe I'm mistaken. Is it his father or is it Jared Kushner?
It's his father?
Yeah, it's his father.
Criminal ambassador to France?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
My God.
Yes. It's wrong.
Christ.
And look, this is the kind of stuff that erodes trust among the American people in our various institutions, including our justice system. There's very clearly a two-tier justice system at play here. And so, look, I think that there should be a law preventing presidents from pardoning individuals where they have a conflict of interest, family members, right? There should be protections to prevent that kind of activity from taking place. But if there isn't, we're going to continue seeing more of this, and we're going to continue seeing more trust eroded among the American people toward our institutions and our justice system. It's just the fact of the matter. And it is unjust. It is unjust, that Jared Kushner's father engaged in white-collar crime prior to Trump taking office, was in prison, was pardoned by Trump, and is now going to serve as the U.S. ambassador to France. That's insane. Yeah, but that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, sorry, I read that headline in a hurry. You guys are right. It's his dad, of course. And so why is Charles, the criminal Kushner, our ambassador to France? If you guys don't know the story, part of what he did was that he wanted to screw over his brother-in-law. So he hired a prostitute to have sex with him and tape it. And then he sent that tape to his own sister to use as blackmail. He's a sick, sick guy. And now he's our ambassador to France because when you're sick and corrupt and a white collar criminal, Trump gives you a reward for it. Keep it real. And then if you're MAGA guys, hey, what are you doing? So Hunter Biden getting $5 million from a Ukrainian gas company that he has no expertise in and is totally full of crap about. We agree with you guys. That's a scam. That's a con. That's the Ukrainian government or the Ukrainian company trying to influence US foreign policy. They failed, but they tried to. But Jared Kushner was in charge of policy in regards to Saudi Arabia in the first term. And then after helping Saudi Arabia with US foreign policy, hey, look at that. Jared Kushner got $2 billion. Now that's not a low-level scam. That's a high-level con man. $2 billion from the Saudis. You guys enraged about that? Are we gonna have hearings about that? In fact, James Comer was asked about it because he did mention it once. And I remember giving him credit. Oh my God, he mentioned Jared Kushner in the same sentence, right? The very next day when he's asked about it, or a little bit later after he's asked, Comer said, oh no, I mentioned that, but we will not be investigating Jared Kushner. Of course not, because he's not fair. He doesn't care about doing what's right. He's just a political hatchet man. So his job was to destroy the Biden family and protect the Kushner and Trump family. Well, congratulations, mission accomplished.
He doesn't have to explain to anybody. This is his right as president. He can pardon, if he wants to pardon Bozo the Clown, he can pardon Bozo the Clown. I'm not sure why people are clutching their pearls while the left is clutching their pearls. Because did y'all forget all the stuff that we said was going on, or that doesn't matter? Democrats, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You can't let people tell you you're not taking the moral ground when we take the moral ground all the time. And you see what's going on and you get why he's decided to do this, or you don't. But you don't go out and chew up other Democrats.
No, I'm going to go ahead and chew up the Democrats because, when they're wrong, they're wrong. And when it comes to Joe Biden's pardon of Hunter Biden, I think that there's a really big problem here that more and more people are waking up to. For me, the pardon, yes, look, I said it the first time we covered this story. I'm going to say it right now as well. I think all politicians are liars, okay? I didn't clutch my pearls over Biden lying because I know Biden's a liar, okay? So I think that the hypocrisy angle is the most boring angle to this story. Of course he's hypocritical. Of course he's a liar. If it talks like a politician, if it walks like a politician, it's lying, okay? For sure. So putting that aside entirely, for me, the issue is, the fact that this is a blanket pardon that spans for a pretty long period of time, for 11 years. And when you consider the crimes that Hunter Biden was being prosecuted for, they didn't span in the time frame of 11 years. So why exactly did Joe Biden decide to make the dates or the period of time where Hunter Biden is totally clear of any fear of prosecution so vast? Well, as I shared yesterday, the blanket pardon does stretch 11 years, again, far surpassing the period of time in which in which Hunter lied on a government form in order to buy a gun. Yes, that is a crime. That's what he's being prosecuted for. It stretches well beyond the years in which he failed to pay his taxes. That's the second thing he's getting prosecuted for, right? And so it seems like that period of time is kind of meant to protect Biden from prosecution of other potential crimes he committed that he isn't currently being prosecuted for, but could potentially be prosecuted for under the Trump administration, right? And so Lee Fong writes over at Substack, where he, is an independent journalist, that the order grants Hunter a pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. Fascinating. Now, that 11-year pardon window extends beyond the period of the crimes prosecuted by the Department of Justice. After all, the illegal firearm purchase was on October 12th, 2018, and Hunter failed to pay his taxes in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. So in other words, Biden's pardon essentially protects Hunter Biden for 2 additional years prior to his failure to pay taxes in 2016. So what happened between 2014 and 2016? What could Hunter Biden have possibly gotten himself into that it appears Joe Biden is trying to protect him from getting prosecuted for? Well, there are some issues. Okay, now I want to remind you all of what happened to Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort, close advisor to Donald Trump, he ended up serving some time in prison because he failed to register as a foreign agent. He was doing lobbying work on behalf of foreign entities. And when you do that, you're supposed to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. He didn't do that. And so as a result, he got prosecuted. There were other issues involved, but Paul Manafort was certainly punished for his failure to register as a foreign agent. Now, there's evidence showing that Hunter Biden also engaged in lobbying on behalf of foreign entities, but did not register as a foreign agent. So what's up with that double standard? Now, to be clear, the special counsel never pursued prosecution of Hunter Biden for failure to register as a foreign agent, but he was thinking about it. He was getting ready to do it appears. So let me give you the details. So Hunter Biden served on the board of Burisma Holdings Limited. That's the gas company, Ukrainian gas company. And he did so from May 2014 and left in April of 2019. Interesting. From the time his father served as vice president until he began running for president. Records, which the Biden administration had withheld for years, indicate that Hunter Biden wrote at least one letter to the US ambassador to Italy in 2016, seeking assistance for the Ukrainian gas company Burisma. Okay, well, that's lobbying on behalf of a foreign entity. Embassy officials, though, were uneasy with the request from Hunter Biden because of the fact that it's the son of the current sitting vice president, and he's lobbying on behalf of a foreign company. And so the response was, I want to be careful about promising too much, wrote a Commerce Department official based in the US Embassy in Rome who was tasked with responding. This is a Ukrainian company, and purely to protect ourselves, US government should not be actively advocating with the government of Italy without the company going through the Department of Commerce Advocacy Center, the official wrote. So this individual is like, yo, you look like you're trying to, skip some people, skip some processes that we're supposed to undergo in order to do some favors for this Ukrainian company. And there's more, including Hunter's involvement with a Romanian oligarch who was under investigation and sought Hunter's help. He hired Hunter Biden, hoping that Hunter Biden would help him with some business dealings, yes, but also, can you help make this investigation go away? Here's some more details on that.
This is the closest the special counsel has come to tying President Biden to his son's foreign business affairs. Special counsel David Weiss accused Hunter Biden of accepting about $1 million from a Romanian businessman who was attempting to influence U.S. policy and public opinion while Joe Biden was vice president. In a new court filing, the special counsel said Hunter Biden and 2 associates were hired in 2015 by Gabriel Popovici, a Romanian real estate tycoon who was facing corruption charges in his home country and wanted the U.S. to intervene. The filing said Hunter Biden was concerned lobbying work might cause political ramifications for his father, so the payment was structured in a way that concealed the true nature of the work he was performing.
That's bad. That seems pretty bad. And the more you learn about this, the more you scratch beneath the surface, it really helps to explain why the time frame in which Joe Biden provided a blanket pardon for his son is so vast, when it doesn't need to be so vast, when you're only thinking about the gun charge and Hunter Biden's failure to pay his taxes, which, by the way, to be clear, he has since paid back to the IRS with interest, with penalties and fines included. So if it was literally all about the fact that he failed to pay his taxes, but made right on his, failure to do so and paid back the government, okay, I wouldn't have a problem with the pardon. And honestly, the government form lying about his addiction to obtain the gun, that's bad. I don't think that's a great thing, but I do think that the prosecution and what the, special counsel is pursuing in regard to that charge, it's like a little ridiculous, right? It's too much. But this stuff is a big deal. And the reason why I find it a big deal, I want you to understand, I am being very consistent here. I don't like corruption. I get that corruption, thanks to the Supreme Court, is now baked into our political system. But we can't have foreign countries or foreign companies or foreign entities also get mixed up in our corruption. I know that it still happens to some extent. I know that there are some loopholes. Okay, like in this case, all Hunter Biden even needed to do really is register as a foreign agent, and he didn't do that. So I need to understand, why is it that others, especially those tied to Donald Trump, were, in my opinion, rightly prosecuted for that, but Hunter Biden is now free to go. He doesn't have to worry. He doesn't even have to worry about any charges being filed, regardless of what he did between January of 2014 and December 1st of this year. By the way, in 2016, that Romanian oligarch Papavișu was convicted on charges related to a land deal in northern Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. Also, there's more. Hunter Biden and his associates received millions of dollars from Chinese entities such as State Energy, HK Limited, and the now bankrupt CEFC China Energy Co. Limited. Now, Hunter Biden had cultivated a business relationship with Yi Jianming, the founder of CEFC, who has been investigated by the Chinese authorities on suspicion of economic crimes. In 2017, Yi gave Hunter Biden a 2.8 carat diamond as a thank you for a meeting. Now, this happened in 2017, and Hunter Biden was actually asked about this in a sit-down interview. And he's like, this was in 2017 when my father was no longer the vice president. So what's the problem here? Okay, look, first of all, I get why he answered that way, because at the time, the Republican Party was essentially trying to tie Hunter Biden's shady foreign dealings with his father, Joe Biden, because they really wanted to go after Joe Biden, right? And so what Hunter Biden was doing here was essentially protecting his father to say, well, he was no longer vice president. So what could he have done as someone who is no longer in office? But Joe Biden has been a career politician. He was a politician when he was a zygote. Okay, that's hyperbole, but you guys know what I mean. His entire adult life, he's been a politician, which means that he's got lifelong relationships with people in the federal government. So first of all, to say that someone like Joe Biden wouldn't have any sway when it comes to our foreign policy, domestic policy, if he's not in office, is laughable to say the least. He's got buddies. He can lobby them to do all sorts of favors. But it's not just about Joe Biden. It's also about Hunter Biden. Why are you lobbying on behalf of foreign entities without registering as a foreign agent, as you are required to do by law? Now, the CEFC, that's the Chinese company, again, had hoped to invest in a liquefied natural gas venture in Louisiana, but that deal ultimately flopped. But during the presidential debate, Joe Biden actually lied about Hunter Biden's dealings with Chinese entities. And I think it's important to know about that as well. Let's take a look.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China. I have not had it. The only guy made money from China is this guy.
He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every place he goes.
Thank you. We do need to move on.
But it was true. So family members of Joe Biden's, including Hunter Biden, of course, have, made as much as $10 million in recent years through these foreign, dealings. And so it is true, and it's obvious here that Hunter Biden did make money from these Chinese entities. And by the way, there's more. As a result, in late October of last year, Justice Department Special Counsel David Weiss was actually investigating whether Hunter Biden should have registered for the overseas foreign work that he was doing. Now, although prosecutors had not charged Hunter Biden with violating the foreign lobbying laws yet, they did cite all of these various arrangements and issues, especially with the Romanian oligarch and stuff, in order to make a point that there was quite a bit of smoke. There's quite a bit of evidence, and it appears that Weiss was preparing to file those charges. Now we'll never know. Now we'll have no idea. And I think that's the issue here, right? So Charlamagne responded to Joe Biden pardoning his son by saying, look, you're going to do what you're going to do. That's fine. But the Democratic Party shouldn't act so pure. And that's really what I want to get to here. There's a lot of moralizing from the Democratic Party. I can't help but think of people like Whoopi Goldberg, like Sunny Hostin, who act like the corruption is so much worse. Like the behavior of people involved in the Trump administration are so much worse. And in some ways, certainly rhetorically speaking, you can definitely make that case. The inability to accept the 2020 election results definitely make that case. There are certainly areas in which, Trump's behavior and the behavior of those around him were unacceptable and unique from what we have seen from the Democratic Party. However, as it pertains to corruption, as it pertains to the disgusting, muddy swamp that all of these politicians are swimming in, do not make the mistake of thinking that Republicans are special creatures in that regard, because they're not. Okay, the Democrats, I think, were able to benefit from the goodwill and the successes of people like and former presidents like FDR. But that branding, that pro-worker, anti-corruption branding ain't gonna fly anymore. People aren't gonna buy it. And so when Joe Biden presents himself as this decent, moral human being, it's not just what he has aided and abetted in Israel, or Gaza, I should say. It's also the fact that he engages in the same corrupt acts. He engages in using a two-tier justice system to protect his own, just like Donald Trump would. It's just that he's got a polite tone. He doesn't use the same harsh rhetoric. But I don't know, is it better to have a corrupt politician smile in your face? Or would you prefer to have a politician just tell you exactly how corrupt they really are? Both are terrible. Both are bad. But I need people to understand that Democrats can't keep getting away with presenting themselves as the pure ones and the moral ones, because they're anything but. And this story is a great example of that.
And I honestly don't care. I just want Democrats to stop acting like they are on this moral high ground politically when they have shown us they're not, whether it's skipping the primary process when Biden stepped down and things like Biden pardoning his son. Stop acting like y'all the pure party and Republicans aren't. And it also shows me elected officials can do whatever they want as long as they have the political will and courage to do it.
Based. Cenk, back to you.
As usual, I agree with my brother Charlamagne. So it's one thing to do the wrong thing. It's another thing to be self-righteous about it. And that's what's really annoying and gets under people's skin, right? So Joe Biden said 1,000 times, no one's above the law, no one's above the law. And then on his way out, after he loses the election, or his party does, he's like, well, no one other than my family members, we're obviously above the law, you know what I'm saying? It's because they didn't expect to lose the election. And he was saying no one's above the law as a political gimmick against Donald Trump. Never meant it in the first place. Whoopi's not telling the truth. We showed her clip earlier in the show where she says, well, Joe Biden has good intent. How the hell do you know that? Doesn't look like he has good intent at all. And what Charlamagne is doing, and why we love it, is because he's now broken out of the mainstream media. He's in radio originally, right? It's core part of mainstream media, but he's breaking the mold and say, I'm done with this, right? So you keep telling us they have great intent and they're gonna keep on delivering, and all I ever see them is deliver for themselves. Because that's the second part of it, Anna. So they said they were gonna do voting rights, they didn't do it. They said they were gonna do public option, they didn't even propose it. They said they were gonna do the PRO Act, they let it die in committee. We can go on and on and on of all the fake promises to their voters that they never do and they have no intention of doing. But once they lose an election and it's their ass on the line, all of a sudden they care. All of a sudden, we're not concerned about parliamentarians, we're not concerned about filibusters, we're not concerned about any kind of etiquette, we're not concerned about democracy, we're not concerned about any of it. All we're concerned about is us. So both Charlamagne and us, we're not saying, oh yeah, let the Republicans do that too. No, we're saying neither side should do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And look, the reason why I found Charlamagne's reaction to be the most interesting is because it resonated the most with me and how I feel and have been feeling about the Democratic Party, right? And so when I look at Charlamagne and some of the commentary that he's been engaging in, not just after the election, but even during the election when Biden was still in the race, I see myself, or at least the beginning of a bit of the evolution that I've gone through in recent years, right? Where it's not just that you sour on the Democratic Party, you start to see the areas in which the Democrats love to moralize about like, oh, the Republican Party is so bad. And then they engage in the same behavior again and again and again, right? And so, look, I've told you this, sorry to bring it up again, but whenever you bring up how disastrous Donald Trump is gonna be in the Middle East, right? And how, and it's true, I definitely think he's gonna be terrible in the Middle East, right? He was paid to be terrible in the Middle East. But we can't lose sight of the fact that 200 people were killed in Gaza on Saturday alone by IDF airstrikes. And the current administration in the White House is a Democratic administration. Biden has aided and abetted the slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent people in the Middle East and has failed to do anything to hold the Israeli government accountable for war crimes that it's been committing. And so, yes, you can be critical of Donald Trump, but he's not in office yet. Joe Biden's in office, and Joe Biden has been horrendous on this issue, along with a whole host of other issues that the Democrats, again, love to moralize about when there's a Republican administration in charge. But once they're in charge, apparently same behavior is totally okay.
Yeah, and so it's not just about hypocrisy on the Middle East, which, everybody knows. And look, even in my conversations with right-wing populists that are part of MAGA, they all know Trump's gonna serve Israel and they hate it, but they know it. And we know that Biden's gonna serve Israel and Kamala Harris would have served Israel. We all know it. And we all know it's because of the money. The only people who deny it are the actor clowns on mainstream media who are like, oh, that is an outrageous thing just because, AIPAC has given $100 million to these politicians, and just because, the Adelson family has given over $300 million to Donald Trump and told him that they want US foreign policy and he's not to meddle in their setting foreign policy on behalf of Israel, doesn't mean that that's legalized bribery. That's anti-Semitic to say, blah, 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 okay? The Uniparty is full of crap and they serve their donors. And yes, unfortunately, if you're MAGA and you think Donald Trump's an angel and the one guy above all that, you see him on the Middle East, he's not an angel either, and he's gonna do exactly what his donors want, let alone what him reversing positions on electric vehicles and TikTok and saying in the rallies, I did it because a new donor gave me money, Elon Musk and Jeff Yass, right? So unfortunately, these are both true, but the part that becomes more grating on the nerves with the Democrats is how they pretend to be angels. Like, everybody knows Trump's a guy who's gonna say bad things and he's gonna do some bad things and maybe a lot of bad things. But it's not like anybody thinks, unless they're in La La Land, oh my God, Trump is the most moral person. He would never do anything wrong. I mean, you'd have to be nuts to think that, right? But they say that about Joe Biden all the time. They say it about Kamala Harris all the time. They say it about Nancy Pelosi every time, right? No, that's just fantasy land, man. The plane. That's what I hear every time a reporter tells me that Biden, Harris, and Pelosi are angels. You're about to land on fantasy island. You're nuts. All these guys do the same thing. They look out for themselves and their donors and never about us.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.